Okay, let's make a simple health and damage system for our player so he can take damage and heal and die. So the third person controller selected, I'm going to expand it, right click, create an empty game object underneath it, and we'll call this the player health manager, and we'll give it a tag of the same name. Give it an FSM. And start editing it. So once again, state 1 will be initialize. And we're going to add a state for healing. Let's do a heal check. The check on whether we heal or not. If you're full health, you don't want to heal more than full health. And we'll do a state for damage check, because if you're dead, you don't want to do more damage. Alright, so from these two states here, we want another global transition, like we have this start global transition here. So we need to add two events, or global events. Let's do heal, make that global, and damage, make that global. Add these transitions in for heal and damage. So we're going to need some integer variables to control the health and be the health. Let's go over here. We need a current health. Need a max health. We need an amount to heal the player by when getting a heal, and an amount to damage when getting a damage. So let's go ahead and on these variables, let's give the max health a value of 100 and put it in the inspector so we can see it, and the current health a value of 100. Put it in the inspector so we can see it. Current health. There we go. Okay. So we've got some events and we've got some variables. Let's go ahead and set up the first heal check. So let's do an int compare. So what we want to do is we want to see when we get a message for healing, we want to see that the health is not already at max. So int compare, put one on damage as well. Alright, so we want to see if the current health and we just want to see if the current health is equal to current health. Let's see if current health is less than the max health. Yeah. Current health less than max health. Send an event, heal. So we need to add some transitions. Can we add a new transition here? Let's see, equal. Yeah. But no, if it's less than max health, we want a new event. Do heal. If it's equal or greater, do not heal. And we'll stick it on greater as well. So let's add a state for doing the heal. Heal player. Add state. Do not We'll just say you're at full health. All right. Let's add these transitions. So heal, do not heal. And then we're going to have an update function here where all the information gets pushed into an update for the UI. And then here we want to do another, what we'll do is we'll add the amount to heal on this guy in this state here to the current health. So let's see here, we have our int up still. We want int add. The variable we want is the current health, and we want to add the amount to heal. And this state is fine. This does nothing. We just want it to go over here, like if it checks and it sees that we're already at full health, just go over here and don't do anything, because we don't want the health going over whatever we've set our max health to. Alright, so we're going to do something similar for the damage. So we want to check and see if the player has hit points to subtract or not, and if it does, subtract them. If not, don't do anything because the player is dead. So let's go ahead and add a state for player dead, and then we'll add a state for doing damage. And depending on the type of game you have, you could break these systems up, the heal and the damage, into separate objects in your scene hierarchy if you need to. But I've actually found that it's pretty robust. The system works fast enough that you can have multiple damage and heal events come in, and it will keep up just fine. But depending on the pace of your game, if you run into a situation where you have multiple heals and damages coming in at the same time, you may need to break these systems out, but I really don't think you're going to run into that situation for this class. So we need some new transitions, some new events. Let's see, so if the current health is greater than 0, we need a new event. Do damage. If it's equal, we'll just say you're dead. Is dead. Equal or less than is dead, in case we get to the below 0 somehow. Change the name of this state from do damage to damage player. Okay. When that's done, we'll also update the UI with the damaged health. And then on, like here, we have int add. We can do an int add on this one as well, but we'll be adding a negative number instead of a positive number. Amount to damage instead of amount to heal. So the amount to damage will come in as we'll be setting that amount as a negative number as opposed to a positive number like we have for heals. So that's the basics of setting this up. So this is the basic logical structure. Right now we don't have anything in the scene to actually damage the player character. So let's do that. On the Unity Asset Store, there is a Dungeon Traps asset. I'm going to go ahead and import that. It's just Dungeon Traps. They're free, so go ahead and get those. And I'm going to be using this cutter as a test object to set up the damage, do some damage to our player here. Okay, I've imported the traps and they're in the assets folder, or yeah, under assets, and they're in dungeon traps. So close out Playmaker so we can see that. We have this trap folder. We want the prefabs. There is this trap cutter prefab right here. I'm just going to drag that into scene and put it close by. Let's push play and see how this works. It doesn't work. Okay, let's see here. Where's the animation clip? There we go. Trap cutter play. We'll just run that. Hopefully that will just make it run nonstop. Yep, okay. So it's running. Right now I can run into it and absolutely nothing happens. So that's not good. That's not going to work for what we want. So let's do something about that. Let's add a collider. Make it a box collider. Actually, do I want to add it to the top layer? Let's see here. We have the cutter, the trap cutter. Let's add it to. Let's see. We need a collider and a trigger on this. So we need something that will collide with him and a trigger. So let's add the collider to the top tier of this. The box collider, okay. Just move that. Oops. That up a bit. Doesn't need to be quite so large. Actually, we want that to encompass the blades. I really hate it when I can't see the backside of one of these faces to just drag and fit it. There it is, ever so faintly. Sorry about this, it's just being difficult today. Okay, now let's see how that. Alright, so now. Cool. Can't just walk through it. That's great. Now we need another one of these that will actually cause damage whenever the player enters it. So I'm going to stick that on the cutter object itself. Oh, actually, I wonder, I think I should be able to just copy this guy. Copy component. And paste component as new. Make that a trigger. And let's see. Yep, that trigger is actually spinning. So as you can see, it's coming out a little bit far. I don't know, that's not too bad. I'm going to adjust the size of that collider a little bit to give the player a little more leeway to be a little more fair, because right now that's coming out a little far. And I always think it's nice to be as fair as you possibly can with things like this, because players will notice eventually. Someone will notice that you've skimped on the collider and either made it a little too big or a little too small. And when dealing with players, it's always best to deal with it being a little more in their favor than a little more against them. So just tighten this collider up a little bit. So you have to remember, they can't see the collider. They see the art, and if what they see is completely different from what they're getting from the art, or what the logic is too different from the art, they're going to get frustrated and they're going to get angry. And you want to avoid Reddit threads about you. So let's, all right, cool. I mean, if you wanted to get really detailed about it, you could put a collider for each and every single blade, but actually not for every blade, but for one collider here and one collider there. But then you'd have to, that just gets, PlayMaker doesn't work with that amount of data very easily. It gets confusing, and for this demonstration, it's a little unnecessary. All right, so we have a collider and we have a trigger. So let's put the FSM on the cutter too for doing some damage. So right now we have a system on the player, and we don't have any way of feeding damage information to it just yet. So that's what we're going to do now, is we're going to make a little damage machine. Oh, that was the wrong FSM script. Call this damage FSM, and this will be something you can template off and put onto a bunch of different things. So to start with, we have our initialize, which we will be finding our health manager with, because that's where we're going to be sending some information. Put a finish there. So let's start off with just getting the logic laid out, and then we'll go back and fill this out. We're going to have we're going to listen with this state. So we're going to listen for the player entering, and then we're going to do some damage. So we need a trigger event. When you collides with the player, send event. We'll make a new event. Damage player. So it's going to sit here, it's going to listen when the player comes in, it's going to deal some damage. And when we deal damage, we need to tell it how much damage to deal. So over here on our variables, make a variable called damage value. And we'll put this into the inspector, and I'm going to put a tooltip in here just so that we know it needs to be a negative. And to start with, we're going to have the trap do -10 health. Alright, so now that we have a damage to do, we need to set the value of the damage to deal. So if you look back, here we are on the player health manager. We have an amount to damage. So we need to set the value of this in our object that's doing the damage whenever the trigger condition has been met to deal damage. Let's see, where is that at? Again, the cutter. All right. So we need to, on the deal damage state, set FSM int, and the game object, we need to find it. So over here in our initialize state, find game object, need the player health manager with the tag player health manager, and store it in a new variable called player health manager. Specify game object, player health manager on the deal damage state. And the FSM name is, what did we name that? Let's just copy that over. Player health manager FSM. Nice and logical. And the variable name was damage to deal, I believe. is amount to damage. It's important that you get that name right. Just copy and paste that. And the value we want to send is the damage value, which is at -10. And then we want to send an event to the player health manager. So if you look here, we've got this structure where when it starts, it goes to this state right here. It goes to this initialized state. When the player enters the trigger of the trap, we want it to come up to this state, to the damage check. So we want to send the event damage from our trap. So we want to send event is a game object FSM. Specify the game object is the player health manager, and all this stuff is the same. We need to send the event damage. Alright. So let's see. When that's done, we want to go back to finished. So let's select the player health manager so we can see what happens with the health as we run into the trap. See if this works. Yep, there it goes. Boom, he gets cut up. So he can walk into the trap and he loses health. Let's do that again. So we can see chop, 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 chop. Okay, that's kind of quick. If you think that's too fast, if you're just dealing too much damage, you can add a wait action. Not a random wait, but a wait. Get rid of that guy. Let's just make it small amount of time so that he doesn't get cut up too quickly. Once again, you want to be fair to your players. You want to give them a chance to react and change what's happening to them. There's a little bug there. All right. Okay, that's going very quickly still, so let's change that. Okay, so yeah, now it's cutting him slower. So you give the player a chance to react and not get cut as quickly if you want that. So that's just one way that you can add a little bit of control for you. Let's see here, the time to wait. You could put that on a variable and expose it in to the inspector so that you don't have to dive into the FSM to change it all the time. So I'll go ahead and do that. Time between hits. And I will expose this variable starting out at 0.5, and I'll put that in the inspector. So when you're fine-tuning your trap, you can just stay here and edit how quickly there is how long the wait is between hits. So you have to dive into Playmaker every time. Alright, so that handles him dying or getting hit. Let's see, do I have a death animation in here? Let me see if I do. I know there's a death animation in the package of animations I posted to Blackboard. I'm wondering if I have those here. I do not. I'm going to go ahead and pause this and import those death animations real quick so we can have our challenger die. He's getting hit, might as well give him the ability to die. So I'll be right back with those animations added into the project. Okay, I've got my death animation now, so let's go ahead and finish this part of the controller out of the health manager. So I look for it, there's the falling forward death, make it humanoid, and from another avatar we want a chow rig avatar, which I believe is what we're using on supply. This guy is using the, yes, chow rig, okay, cool. So why is that not working? What's the import problem here? Hip's not found. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and fix this. And, okay, let's see. Alright. Instead of creating from another model, I just did it from, instead of importing the avatar, the chow rig, I just created from this model. And it appears to be working. We'll see what happens. Yep, there he goes. He falls down and he dies. Okay. So we want to put this into our, why is that called Mixamo? That's dumb. Let's call it death animation. Where's rename? Not an option apparently. Let's see. There we go. Get rid of that. Right, so now we have a death animation in our state machine for that manages all the animations. So if we go to our third-person character controller now, we will need to edit this attacks where we have this mirror where we're mirroring what's going on in Meccano. We want to also put in here, so we have add state, death animation, and okay, that may not be entirely necessary, but I'm going to play it safe anyway. So back into the player health manager, we need to check if the damage that has been dealt actually kills the player. So we have a check up here that checks if the player is already dead before it goes through and applies damage, because we don't want to get into negative hit points. So what we need then is we need to find out, like, well, is the damage we just applied, is that actually a killing blow? So what we're going to do is after we have this update UI, let's add a finish to that. We're going to add another state to check and see if that was a killing blow and if the player died. Just say check for kill shot. And then we want to know if the player is alive after that damage, or is the player dead? So once again, this is just another int compare. If the current health is greater than 0, we'll say player alive. If it's equal or less than, player is dead. Alright, so if the player is dead, we want to play the death animation. Alright, so what we want to do is, there's a couple of ways we can do this. So I'm going to say, let's add transitions from all these guys here to the death animation so that you can die from anywhere basically. And we'll add another parameter, make it a bool because you're either alive or you're not. And just say it's died. Alright. So from anywhere you can die. The condition is not forward, but died true. For all of these. Is that all of them? Okay, so back on our health manager, when we enter the dead state, we need to set animator bool died to true. Set animator bool of not the owner, so we need to get the third person character controller object. So we need to get, let's see here, we need to get the parent over in our initialized state. Get the parent of the owner, which is the health manager, and we store the result as the player controller. Specify a game object now, the player controller, and the parameter we're looking for is died. Make sure you spell that correctly, that they line up in what you have in your animator and what you have in your FSM. And the value we want to set is that. Okay, if I did this right, our challenger should be able to die now. Okay, so let's look at the health manager. We got the current health and the max health. I could set that to be a little quicker for the purposes of these tests, but here he goes, he's about to die. He did not die. Oh, there he goes. That was a little slow. Let's speed up the damage on the trap. 1.1, 0.1, and we'll just say minus 30. So pretty dangerous fast trap. Okay. Let's see if I can see what the issue is here. Why did this take so long? Okay. Is there an exit time? Let's take the exit time off on these guys. That should speed things up a little bit. Come on. Well, why is he not taking damage now? Alright, I probably set the trap cutter. Time between hits is too fast. Okay, we're not, looks like we're getting stuck in the initialized state now. What's going on here? Alright, so we're sending events. That's working. Trying to deal damage. Okay. Boom, boom. but we're not actually getting the damage event. We're staying stuck in here. Let's see what happens. Okay, yes, we are alive. Thank you very much for that. Now, why aren't we getting events? It was just working, and now suddenly it's not. Let's look at the trap cutter. Alright, send an event to the player health manager. Player health manager FSM. Let's try sending the event first, see if that fixes it. Kind of strange that it was working just fine a moment ago. And now it doesn't want to work at all. Okay. Sending damage. We have the event. What did that break on? Still not working. Okay, I'm going to pause the video, find out what's not working, and show you the solution. Okay, so it turns out that the problem was that Unity just needed to be restarted. So, yeah, sometimes that happens. It's really annoying. The one thing that I did change over here in the trap cutter that I changed during the video that I actually didn't need, and I changed it back, was I had this set FSM int. I put the send event over it, and I didn't change it back. I went ahead and I changed it back so that the set FSM int is over the send event. Make sure you change that as well. So now let's check and see what happens with a playthrough. I've got my player health manager selected, and walk into it, and sure enough, his health subtracts, and he dies at -20. Okay, so we're not getting damage continually added, but since I changed the amount of damage the trap does to H hit does 30, he's only got 100 hit points, so that leaves out that when he dies, he's got a balance of -20. So we need to get rid of that. Otherwise, we don't want our UI displaying -20 when we start putting the values up here on our screen. So I'm going to go back here to the player health manager, and on the damage player, I'm going to add a int clamp. So if you just add int up here, there is a, where did they put that? Yes, the clamp. And the clamp will just make sure that no matter what happens after these calculations, the int can't go over or under a certain value. So the current health, the minimum value is going to be 0, and the max value will be max health. So now let's see what happens when we play this and die. Alright, he dies, and he reports a current health of 0 when he dies, not -20. Perfect. Okay, so when he dies, he's also dying in the air. We'll get to that. When he dies, we also want to play another sound. So if you remember, that Fantasy SFX package that we used for our extra lives. This guy's right here. I'm gonna go ahead and import some of this. None. I want, what was it? It wasn't trap. Jingle lose. Yeah, we want this guy right here. So when he dies, we'll play that sound. Alright, let's test that out. Cool. And he's just floating in the air. Let's see if we can figure out what's going on with that. Death, falling forward death, okay. The animations. Okay. Bake into pose maybe. Alright. If you see here, in the mechanism here, he's set off from his origin point. When I bake it into pose, he collapses to his origin point. So make sure that you, on the falling forward death animation, you check that bake into pose button there. Go ahead and apply that. Back to the game. Much better. Alright. So we've got the sound playing, we've got him dying, and let's see, is there anything else I want to do with the health manager as regards to death? Oh, yes. So we have this idea of extra lives, right? So let's subtract an extra life. And that's, I believe that's on our coin manager here. So yeah, I'm taking a look at the coin manager. And let's see here. Yep, there is a lives variable. So we will subtract 1 from the lives whenever he dies. So let's add that. I'm actually thinking if maybe there should be a life manager, but you know, that's we'll worry about that later. If you're going to do something where extra lives are a part of your game, you might consider doing that, where the coin manager will add a value to the life manager. As right now we're going to be setting things on the coin manager, and that might get a little complicated. So for a bigger game, but for this will be fine. So we need to find our coin manager. Got a couple of them there. Don't need that. Let's see, where is that coin manager? With the tag coin manager, and store it as the coin manager. Okay, now we're going to set. Let's see what's the best way to do this. So without a dedicated life manager that has a increase and a decrease like this does, right? We have to do something a little messier, but it'll work. What we'll have to do is we'll have to get the FSM int off of the coin manager, subtract 1, and then set the FSM int after we've subtracted 1. That's kind of dirty. I don't really like it that much, but it'll work for the purposes of this demonstration. But what you should do is you should basically take this FSM, make a life manager, and do the same thing where you get enough coins, it sends an event to increase your lives by 1, which would be like the heal side, right? You lose a life, it will decrease your lives by 1, right? It's the exact same logic structure. Uh, in fact, I'm not going to do it this hacky way. If you need a life manager, go ahead and copy this. You literally just save it as a template and go from there. So I'm going to skip that for now. If somebody really wants that and they're struggling with that, I'll put together a demo for it, but I'm not going to since it's literally the exact same structure of a machine. So let's move on to, we've got hurting the player, now let's move on to healing the player. I'm going to make a magic capsule that will heal you. Okay, that will heal the player here, alright. We'll call it good medicine. And it's a little big. Give it a new material. Let's make it a red pill. Alright. So this will be our little heal object. So just like with this trap, we need a trigger on here. So we've already got a capsule collider. Since this is going to be a pickup, just like the coins are, we want it to delete itself after we've picked it up because we don't want the player running into it over and over again, healing themselves. For the purpose of this demonstration, you may want something like that in your game. It's up to you. So we'll just make this a trigger. Then we're going to add an FSM. And this just be the initialize, where we will find the player health manager. And if you're bored of watching me just go through this whole thing again, you can make a template from either your pickups or from the damage system and just edit it to basically do the same thing. I'm walking through this all the way through purely for educational purposes. If I were doing this on my own, I would have made a template and saved myself a bit of work, but I'm doing it this way so that you guys can just get an idea of how this whole process works. Again, so listen, right? This should all be kind of familiar what we're doing here. We need a trigger event. So when the player enters, on trigger enter, send event, do a new event, heal player. And from here we are going to set FSM int. We want to set the value to heal. And then we're going to destroy ourselves. Do that after we set the int. Oh, we also want to send an event telling the machine to heal. All right. So we need an amount to heal the player by. That needs to be an integer as well. Put that in the inspector to start with. We'll say, well, this will heal for 20. All right. Game object on where we want to set the FSM int. is the player health manager. The FSM is player health manager FSM. The variable name is, I believe it's amount to heal. Let's double check that. Amount to heal, indeed, that is it. I'm just going to copy and paste that. And we're going to set the variable with amount to heal. Then we want to send the event. Do we have an event over here? No, we do not have that event. So we are going to send. Where's my? All right, let's go back to the health manager. The global event I'm looking for is heal. I want to send this guy right here to the health manager. So I'm gonna send heal. Then after that, it'll destroy itself. Hopefully that should be set up to work right. I'm just thinking through this real fast, making sure everything is correct. All right. Just make a couple of these. And I will make them different values too. So that one will heal for 20, this one will do for 40. And we'll do this one for, come on, let me select it. Come on, Unity. This one will be 60. Okay. Let's take a look and see what happens. Oh, it's not going to actually do any heals yet. Oh, actually, if I got this set up here? Okay, yeah, looks like I went through and I already set this up. Okay, and compare. We're going to check if the current health is less than the max health. If it is, we'll do the heal. Go over to here, we'll int add the amount to heal. And we want to do the same thing. We want to int clamp. So let's copy this action to the heal player. Alright, so if the current health, yes, all good. That will keep the health from getting too high. So, got the player health manager. Try and get this all set up so I can see everything. Just drop that over there. Alright. Okay, currently we are alive. Let's go take some damage. Alright. Let's grab this pill. Alright. We're at 40. This one will take us to 80. It's not healing. Alright. See if I can see what happens. Not getting the message. Alright. Once again, I think this might be a Unity needs a restart issue. I'm going to default to that. So, oh, got 3 errors here. What are we saying? Event not used by the state or any transition. Send event. What does that mean? Okay. Yeah, so, whoops. I was sending the event heal to himself, and I need to send it to a game object FSM. Whoops. Okay. So we're sending it to the player health manager. This guy here. Alright. So I'll just delete these guys. Try that again. No, not that much. Okay. Go back to our health manager. Okay. Let's take some damage. Alright, cool. Yep. He healed from 20 to 60. Ooh, too much. Alright. See if I can do this. Controls are not very responsive. It's my fault. Cool, that one healed. Okay, and this one should take him to full. Yep, cool. So I've got different heal amounts reporting. Excellent. Alright, let's try the same thing with the trap. Make sure that that's robust enough. So take this trap, Control D. Alright, so we've got this trap is doing 30 damage a hit. We'll make this guy do 15. And then we'll make this one do 5. Make sure you have those negative numbers in there. Otherwise, you're going to have traps that heal, which isn't much of a trap at all. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, that one works, we know that. Okay. Oh, wait, see, 30. See, that was that 15? Yeah, that one was 15. Alright, cool, excellent. Grab that pill, get it to 100, and chop me down for 5. Okay, cool. So, that works. This is the basics of setting up a heal and damage system. Now, I was healing with these little pills. These could be anything. This could be abilities that you have on your character that you push a button and it subtracts some mana and it heals. Just because I call this stuff health, you copy this exact same system and call it mana, right? So this exact thing here, if you have mana in your game, you just copy this, make it a template, change it from health to mana. It's the exact same thing. And just when you want to increase mana, it's just like a heal. When you want to use mana, it's just like a damage. That's exactly the same thing. For enemies that attack. So here on my cutter, on my trap, you do the same thing, right? So I have a collider that checks to see if it's intersected the player. And for your bad guys, you do the same thing. You put a collider on their weapon, and it just sits there and waits till it collides with the player. And when it does, it sends an event for damage. If you have any questions on that, just ask me. But it's pretty simple stuff. This is the bulk of what the system should look like. Now, granted, this might change depending on what kind of game you're making, but this is just a basic health and damage system. Gets you exposed to the ideas of what this is all about. I'll make another video on reporting this information to the UI. I know some of you have been eagerly awaiting energy bars and how to do that. It's not too much, but I'm a little exhausted from recording this video, so I'll do it in another session. Or if you want to try it out yourself, I would love to see that. It's basically you're animated. We use Mechanum for it. We use a float parameter to just move it from. You have the energy bar at max as one animation. They're one frame animations. They're not really animations. But you have the energy bar at max for one frame, and then you have the energy bar at 0 for one frame, and then we control that with a float parameter. It's pretty cool. It's pretty slick. I'll try and throw that together for the next session for you guys. All right.